In this video, I'm going to show how to use the sampler in Lightning. The sampler is one of the key features that Lightning provides. It allows you to create your own samples and assign them to notes. You can assign any number of samples to any number of notes. And if a sample isn't assigned to a note, Lightning will extrapolate the pitch of the note from the closest sample that is assigned. You can save samples. You can configure Lightning to restore a group of saved samples on startup. And using that, you can basically make Lightning sound any way that you want. In order to use the sampler, we're going to go to the sample view, and we're going to do that by first calling up the soft keys, making sure the view category is selected, and then press the previous action, and that's going to take us to the sample view. By default, the sample view can display the built-in the samples associated with the built-in notes. So if I press C, for example, what we're going to see here is the sample that's assigned to that C. And you can see here over on the right, there's a red line and a blue line. This indicates the loop point in the sample. So remember, when you play a note, the note is composed of various phases: attack, decay, sustain, and release. And what this loop point allows us to do is play the note indefinitely while the note is decaying to the sustain point and then released. By default, in the samples that are assigned, you can see that a sample is assigned to a small group of notes within an instrument. There are 128 built-in instruments and 56 drum and percussion sounds. So Lightning comes with a large number of samples pre-configured. To create your own samples, you're going to need to use a USB audio device. One option is a USB headset with a boom microphone. Another option is this USB microphone here. And as you can see, this is a USB Type A connector, and Lightning has a Type C connector. So in this particular case, we're going to need this adapter. And I'm just going to plug the adapter in onto the microphone. And then I'm going to plug it into Lightning here. And as you can see, it detected a USB audio device. And what will happen here depends on the kind of device it detects. Lightning supports USB audio UAC 1.0 compliant devices. Most devices are either UAC 1.0 natively or will fall back to UAC 1.0. Some newer devices might not fall back successfully, so there is a possibility that a device you plug in here might not be recognized by Lightning. But if you'll let me know, I'll try to figure out what's going on. Anyway, this is a USB microphone. When you plug in a microphone, basically Lightning configures itself to use that microphone as its input source. If you plug in a USB headset instead, since the headset has both a microphone and speakers, Lightning will configure that headset to be the default output for all sounds, and so it will no longer send audio over the 3.5 millimeter auxiliary line out. There's a menu item where you can change that default behavior. So if you want it to continue to send to line out, even if you have a USB headset plugged in, you can change that using that menu item. Now, as far as samples go, there's a huge collection of samples available online. You can record your own samples. There are also royalty-free sources of music that you can use, and you can clip and assign pieces out of those as well. And we'll do that in another video. For this video, we're just going to record a very simple audio sample, and then we'll assign that. And in order to do that, in the Lightning sample view, we're going to press the transport action in the soft keys, and then we're going to press record, and anything that this microphone picks up will then be recorded. And you can see basically down here how much time you have once you begin recording if you dispatch the soft keys while you're recording. And so if you had a favorite instrument here, you could play it. If you just wanted to sing and create kind of a choir effect, you could do that. I'm just going to keep talking, and we'll use that to record a little bit of audio. So when I press record, as you can see, it's recording some audio. I'll press record again, and it stops. And now we have an audio waveform here in the sampler. And if we go to the view menu, which has the select action, if we press and hold select for about 5 seconds, what we'll see here is this zoom legend will appear in the lower left corner. So what we did was we went from navigate mode, which allows us to navigate left and right in the sample, to zoom mode, which allows us to zoom in on the sample. And as you can see here, every time I press right, I'm zooming in on the sample, right down to the individual peaks and troughs. And likewise, when I press left, I'm zooming back out again. And if I press and hold select again, it goes from zoom mode to smart mode. And now what will happen is it will attempt to find the various peaks and troughs of the sample. So it allows you to navigate a little bit more quickly in here. Smart is a relatively new feature, so if you don't see that on your device, be sure to update your firmware using the over-the-air update capability. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick the last part of this sample, and I'm going to do that by, first of all, pressing and holding select one more time to go back to the default mode, and then I'm going to, so this is where we started off before we went to zoom or smart. I'm going to press select once here, and you can see that the cursor has changed to this magenta color. And then as I press and hold right, it's going to navigate through this, and I'm just going to grab a bit of the sample at the end. I can play that highlighted section by going to the transport. I can play that. I can also hit select one more time, and now I have that region selected. And let's say I want to assign it to a note. In order to do that, we're going to go into the menu category, and we're going to go back one menu. And in here, you can see there are two menu items here for assigning, as well as a note to assign it to. And by default, it assigns it to the last note you played. As you may recall, when I was going through to display the different waveforms, the last note I played was C in the second octave, which has a MIDI note number of 36. So if we go down here and use next item, I can assign this sample to that note, and I can either clear all of the other samples or I can keep the other samples. So when you're first starting out and you want to define your own instrument, you can clear the other ones, and then as you want to add more notes or more sounds to that instrument, you can keep the other ones. And I should point out right here that if we go back to the main view here, that I still am in channel 1 with grand piano assigned to it. So what I'm actually going to be doing is assigning that piece of that sample to channel 1, and it's going to replace the grand piano sound. You can create virtually as many banks as you want, so you don't have to overwrite the grand piano sound. The built-in samples are always there, so if you don't have a sample group loaded, it'll play those by default. So you don't have to worry about deleting or overwriting the built-in samples. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the view menu, and or the view to verify that we have a region selected. Then we're going back to the sampler menu, and here we're just going to assign the sample by pressing select. It's going to tell us it's using bank 0, which is that default bank, channel 1, key 36, and it's clearing the other samples for that channel in that bank. So now, when we press that note, what we'll see is the note will be played, and so basically that sound is going to play whenever I press a note, and since it's the only sample that's assigned to a note right now, all of the other notes are going to get interpolated from the pitch of the sample I assigned. Typically this would just be the starting point, and we would assign a number of samples across a range of notes to achieve various effects. And then I guess the last thing I'd like to do is just show you in the articulation menu here where we define the loop points. So if you remember back from the beginning of this video, the loop points in the default sample were indicated with red and blue lines in the sample. By default, there is no loop, so it just plays beginning to end. And if you press and hold the note for longer than the sample, it'll just end and you won't hear anything more. If instead you want to add that loop, you can go in here, you can select what kind of loop you want. So through release means it's just going to keep looping until you release the note. The other option here is until release, so it'll keep looping the loop part until you release the note, and then it will play the remainder of the sample if there is any. And so we'll do that. Now, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go down and define the start and the end points. And the easiest way to do that is to go back to the sample and position within the sample to the loop points. Now here, it's worth noting that the entire sample is still displayed here. So even though we assign this one section of the sample to that note, the rest of the sample is still displayed. And the reason it's displayed is because you might want to assign different parts of this sample that we recorded to different notes. But once you want to start working within the sample on a note, what we have to do at this point is reload this sample with the sample for the note. And the way we do that is we go back to the sampler menu, and as you can see up here, we press extract sample, and what it's going to do is tell us that it wants us to press a note that it can extract the sample for. And here is the sample we just assigned to that. And now what we can do is we can define a loop point in here. So position the cursor here to where you want the loop to start. In here, go back to the articulation menu, which is the menu to the left of the sampler menu, and make sure the start item is selected, and hit select to activate that, and then press and hold select, and what it will do is it will automatically load that from the current location. So it's now defined the sample start to the current location in the sample, and we want to do the same thing for the sample end. So we're going to go over here and pick an endpoint. And typically what we would do here is we'd find a very regular part of this waveform so that when it loops, it's not discernible that it's looping across a different part of the waveform. Obviously, there's different effects you might want to achieve, but if you're creating an instrument-like effect, typically you want it to loop across a very regular part of the sample. So we'll go back to menu, we'll go down to next, and we'll press and hold that, and now we have an endpoint in there. And you can see that the beginning of the loop is indicated with that red line and the end with this blue line. And so now when we go and we press a note, we'll hear that region loop for as long as we hold the note down. Now, I just wanted to quickly mention there's a couple of other things here that you will want to experiment with. Back in this articulation menu, there are lots of different things you can set on the sample. So by all means, go there and experiment. And then in addition to the articulation menu, if you go through the next menu item here, you will eventually get to this ADSR menu. By default, there's a global ADSR override. That's the attack, decay, sustain, release envelope. And by default, there's a global override on for all of the notes on Lightning. That's in part what allows the strum to work, because the strum really wouldn't work for those sounds like organ where the sustain lasts indefinitely. So you're going to want to turn off this override if you set your own ADSR parameters on your sample. Other than that, that's how the sampler works. So that's the Lightning Sampler.